Hi, Doug Sr. here for your Live Clean tip of the day. Welcome to Series 2 of the top ingredients to strike from your diet. And number 2 is dairy. So let's get started. Dairy, like gluten, which we covered last time, can be highly inflammatory. Studies have linked dairy to skin ailments like eczema, acne, and rashes, lung issues like asthma, coughing, and sinusitis, and digestive issues like acid reflux, bloating, diarrhea, and even irritable bowel diseases. And even a few of the more common autoimmune diseases like type 1 diabetes and Hashimoto's thyroid disease have been linked. So what is it about dairy that makes it inflammatory? Well, there are a number of compounds within dairy that can cause us to react. However, there's one, more specifically, a protein known as casein. Casein is a slow digesting protein that forms balls or curds once it reaches our gut, and as a result, it becomes difficult for our digestive enzymes to break it down properly. And so for many of us, the body sees casein as a foreign invader that simply shouldn't be there and begins attacking it. So it's not uncommon, for example, for someone eating cheese or drinking milk to experience allergic reactions and even drug-like reactions such as brain fog, excess mucus production, and even sluggishness. But recall our first discussion about gluten and the inflammatory response it brings about. This same type of thing happens to many of us when we consume dairy. To make things worse, some experts have even linked casein to cancer. In fact, it's been said that it's one of the worst cancer promoters ever discovered. So here's an interesting fact you'd never expect to see in a food product. Casein contains compounds known as casomorphins, which act as opiates in the body. You've heard of morphine? That's right, it's related. And although casein is a slow digesting protein, it begins breaking down once it hits the digestive tract. So these casomorphins are quickly attaching to opiate receptor sites in the brain. These are the areas that control our reward and pleasure centers, control pain, and get this, control addictive behaviors. So is it possible casein can cause us to form an addiction to dairy? You know, when we talk to people about losing weight, or even in discussions about improving their health, we always talk about inflammatory foods to remove. And dairy products, more specifically cheese, seems to be one of the top non-negotiable items as far as giving up. People seem willing to compromise on many things, but cheese, no way. And now we may know why. Casein has in fact been compared by some as powerful as a heroin addiction. The casomorphin from casein has also been found to oxidize cholesterol in the blood. So could there be a connection to heart disease? We may one day find out. Now here's another interesting fact about casein. Remember, our Series 1 discussion and the term molecular mimicry. Well, casein has been found to have a molecular structure similar to that of the beta cells, which are little islands on our pancreas responsible for making insulin. So it's not a surprise type 1 diabetes has been linked with dairy consumption. So remember, in molecular mimicry, our immune system gets confused and it begins attacking our cell tissues, thinking that they're the foreign invader they've been sent out to eradicate. In this case, the pancreas's beta cells get attacked because they look similar to casein in structure. And over time, they get destroyed to the point that the pancreas can no longer make insulin, contributing to type 1 diabetes. And while we're on the subject of molecular mimicry, did you know casein in dairy is similar molecularly to gliadin protein? That's the key inflammatory protein in gluten. In this case, they're known as cross-reactors. So think about this. There appears to be a correlation with dairy and thyroid inflammatory responses. So it's no wonder that some people with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's thyroid disease find relief when giving up gluten and dairy from their diets. What's been discovered is that the immune system antibodies created to fight off casein comes from the same immune system branch as the thyroid antibodies created to fight off gluten. So, is it possible that a diet of both gluten and dairy provide a double whammy to our immune system and its continual destruction? Don't know, but it's an interesting issue to consider. And more with molecular mimicry. Studies have shown dairy can cause our immune systems to destroy brain and nervous system tissue. So it seems likely that someone with a dairy sensitivity can be setting themselves up for a neurological autoimmunity at some point in their life. This can exhibit itself as brain fog, multiple sclerosis, or even Parkinson's disease, and bring about symptoms like balance issues, nausea, vertigo, and even sickness related to water and vehicle motion. This is a lot to digest, but let's talk about symptoms. So for someone sensitive to dairy, what can they expect when they eat cheese, drink milk, or consume some other dairy-containing food? Well, here are some signs of dairy intolerance. For youngsters, things as simple as ear infections, eczema, and even tonsillitis. For adults, look for things like gut issues such as bloating and gas, acid reflux, diarrhea, sinus infections or congestion, coughing, postnasal drip, mood swings, hay fever, asthma, eczema, and even acne. So one thing I've yet to mention is lactose, the main sugar component in milk. Many people have been told they're lactose intolerant, and for those that are, it can bring about some very uncomfortable reactions like diarrhea, gas, and bloating. You see, lactose sugar is hard for us to digest, so undigested compounds ultimately become food for harmful gut bacteria, leading to dysbiosis or bacterial imbalances, which can lead to other intestinal disturbances and even possibly leaky gut. This difficulty to digest can also lead to excess mucus production, and that coupled with gut bacterial imbalances can not only lead to the improper breakdown of foods, but also malabsorption issues. So, this was a lot to digest, pardon the pun, but seriously, if you want to figure out if you have a sensitivity to dairy, try the same experiment I mentioned in Series 1 about gluten. Eliminate dairy for 30 days. On day 31, eat a dairy-containing food or drink milk and see what happens. If you notice any symptoms, your sensitivity to dairy is evident, and you can then make choices from there. Meanwhile, just know that like gluten sensitivity, dairy sensitivity is real. So stay tuned for our Series 3, where we discuss the path to good health and the next inflammatory food to keep out of your diet. I'm Doug Sr., and this has been your Live Clean Tip of the Day.